An ancient dragon gets his subscription to life canceled by the champion of the humans, and he can't understand why because as far as he can remember, he has never had beef with humans before. In fact, on many occasions, he has gone out of his way to help humanity, so he at least wants to know what led them to do this, but the humans refuse to give him an answer. The dragon assumes that the humans are killing him for selfish reasons, and to be honest, he has lived long enough as it is, so he isn't going to fight back against them. As the dragon crumbles to dust, he asks the Grim Reaper to take his soul to the underworld so he can finally rest, but the Grim Reaper said nah and stuffed his soul in a baby instead. The dragon opens his eyes to find his new parents and older brother looking down at him, and from what he understands, they decided to name him Dahlin. Years go by, and despite the fact that he was once killed by humans, Dahlin grows up to become a fine young man who cares deeply for the village he grew up in. In this world, agriculture is basically the only industry, so every morning, Dahlin gets up and works in the fields to earn his daily bread. In this village, you're considered an adult at the age of 15, and since Dahlin is now 16, he moved out of his parents' house and now lives on his own and takes care of himself. He's out fishing one day with his older brother when he is reminded that tomorrow is the day he plans to head to the swamp to investigate the recent occurrences there. Dahlin says he remembers, and he still intends to do it because all the lizards in the swamp mysteriously disappeared a month ago, and someone needs to figure out why before something bad happens. That may be true, but his brother sees no reason why Dahlin should have to go since that's usually the job of the garrison. And Dahlin agrees that he normally wouldn't have to do it, but Captain Balin and the others are already busy enough guarding the village, so he doesn't want to bother them with something like this. In that case, Dahlin's brother offers to go with him to make sure he's safe, but Dahlin says Riz won't be necessary. A few moments later, Dahlin catches the first fish of the day, so the brothers end the conversation, and by the time they are done fishing, Dahlin has gotten quite a large haul. Takes his catch back to the village so he can show his friends Melita and Albert, and while they are impressed with the catch, they are concerned that Dahlin was out fishing instead of preparing for his mission. But Dahlin tells them they don't need to worry because he has been preparing little by little over the course of the past few days. Speaking of which, Dahlin wants to thank Melita for her help because he would have had a hard time convincing the village chief to let him go. She says she was happy to help, and Dahlin was the one who trained her in the first place, so she knows he is more than capable of coming back safely. Dahlin asks if Melita and Albert have any plans for the day, so Melita tells him that she plans to take the children out for a brief training session later today, but she says he doesn't need to worry about them since he has enough to deal with already. So Dahlin heads home so he can prepare the fish. While gutting and salting the fish, Dahlin thinks about how the village can afford to hire enough guards to keep the entire place safe, so all the villagers are expected to chip in to ensure everyone's safety. Just then, Era comes up to Dahlin's window and reminds him that he's supposed to have magic practice today. Dahlin had completely forgotten about it, so he thanks Era for coming all the way out here to remind him, so he and Era go head over to Dahlin's magic instructor's house, and once there, Dahlin prepared to demonstrate his offensive magic. He chants a spell, and within a few moments, a powerful energy bolt is fired from his hand, completely destroying the target in front of him. The magic instructor praises Dahlin for his excellent offense, and there's not much for her to teach him anymore regarding that, but as it stands, Dahlin still sucks with medicine, so she's going to spend a lot of time teaching that. Later that evening, Dahlin is in the town square when he meets a young girl with flowing white hair. The village chief introduces her to him and says she will be staying in the village for a while, but he also warns Dahlin that she's a noble lady, so he should be on his best behavior around her. The girl tells Dahlin that her name is Christina and extends her hand to shake his, and as they shook hands, Dahlin could immediately tell that Christina was an incredibly skilled fighter. After she's gone, Dahlin takes a little walk while reminiscing on all the things he has learnt since he became a human. As a dragon, he never had to worry about things like this, but as a human, there is a serious threat of freezing to death in the winter, as well as the risk of heat stroke during the summer, so he has to be careful of his environment. Dahlin soon arrives at his parents' home and they greet him warmly, along with his younger brother Marco. Dahlin brought a bunch of ingredients with him, so his mom takes it all and prepares a wonderful dinner for the family to enjoy. Dahlin really enjoys it since he has missed his mom's cooking, and his father suggests that Dahlin should find a wife who's good at cooking, so he can enjoy meals like this all the time. This isn't the first time Dahlin has heard this, and he's not entirely opposed to the idea of getting married, but he's going to stick with this single life a little while longer. Marco asks him if he's still going to investigate that swamp tomorrow, and Dahlin doesn't think it's a big deal. But his mother is really worried because not only is the swamp really far from here, but the road is also known to be dangerous. However, Dallin assures her that he won't be taking any risks, so there's no reason to be so worried about him. His dad tells him that he is an adult, so he is free to make any decision he chooses, but all he asks is that Dallin makes sure he comes back safely to them. The next day, as Dallin is about to set off on his journey, the entire village comes out to see him off. He thinks this is a little excessive for a send-off, but Balin says this is the least he can do for Dallin when he is taking on a job for him. In all honesty, Balin still feels like he should be the one going instead, but Melita reminds him that if he's gone and the village gets attacked by a monster, then there would be no one here to stop it. Everyone wants to do something to help Dallin out, so the resident nun Letitia goes up to him and offers a small blessing for his protection, and Gary gives him a bento box so he doesn't go hungry out there. They then wish him luck on his trip, and Dallin sets out to investigate the swamp. The lizards that used to live in the swamp would periodically interact with Dullin's village, but one day they suddenly disappeared. Dallin couldn't just ignore such a strange occurrence, so he volunteered to investigate so he can figure out what happened. But he was a bit anxious as to what he might find out here. Once Dallin arrives at the swamp, he uses his hand to feel the surrounding area, and he immediately figures out why the lizards all had to leave. The earth elemental's power has been growing too strong lately, and the water elemental's power has been weakening. Just then, Dallin hears some rustling in the bushes, and he is put on edge because, with the current condition of the swamp, only a powerful monster could survive here. However, as he readies his blade, he is shocked to find a lamia slithering behind him. Lamias aren't usually seen around here, but as strange as it may be for her to be here, she's definitely a smash. The lamia asks Dallin if he's alone, and Dallin confirms that he came by himself, which relieves the lamia, because what she's about to do would be embarrassing if there were other people here. She tries to remember what her mother taught her to do, and from what she remembers, she's supposed to use a charm spell and then do a bunch of movements, but she doesn't remember how to do it right. Dallin is more confused than he is charmed, but the lamia carries on to tell him that she didn't come here for a fight. But all of a sudden, a giant mud monster shows up above her, and that thing doesn't look like the calm and reasonable type. The monster attacks the lamia, but Dallin steps in just in time and cuts its arm off before dragging the lamia into cover. They have to stay quiet and hidden until the monster gives up on looking for them, but once it's finally gone, the lamia asks Dallin what that thing was. He explains that it's a mad earth elemental, and it's probably why all the lizard people who lived here before had to leave. There was an earthquake recently, which may have caused the earth elemental to become like this, and unfortunately, Dallin doesn't think things are going to go back to normal anytime soon. The lamia's name is Selena, and Dallin has heard that all lamias are capable of using magic, so he asks if she can too. Selena confirms that she is able to use magic, so Dallin suggests that they should fight together to take it down. Selena is a little flustered by Dallin's suggestion because lamias are earth monsters, so most of her spells won't be effective against the earth elemental. However, she does have one spell which should be able to damage it, so Dallin comes up with a plan and says he will attack the elemental from the front, so he will need Selena to back him up while he does. They get into position, and Selena is a little nervous to be working together with a human that she just met, but she doesn't have much of a choice, so when Dallin gives the signal, they both run out, and while Dallin holds off the elemental, Selena casts her spell and creates a giant snake which binds the elemental in place. While the elemental is distracted, Dallin charges forward again, and even though Selena couldn't hold it in place for long, she bought more than enough time for Dallin to get within striking range. So he runs up the elemental's body, and by infusing his sword with dragonic energy, he is able to slice the elemental in half, totally defeating it. However, as a result, all that elemental mud turns back into regular mud, and it goes all over the place, covering Selena from head to tail. Dallin rushes over to check if Selena is alright, and she doesn't seem to be hurt, so he just needs to take care of her clothes and get her cleaned up. Later that night, Dallin sets up camp and is preparing dinner for himself and Selena. Selena is surprised that Dallin isn't even slightly scared of her, even though she's a lamia, so Dallin explains that he has met lamias before, but even so, Selena is different from those he has met before. Most lamias are wary of humans and are much more aggressive, but now that he thinks about it, there aren't any lamia villages nearby, so he's wondering what Selena is doing out here. Selena explains that it is a part of her people's tradition that when you turn 17, you need to leave home and go find yourself a husband, which is why she's away from her village. The lamia race is cursed, so they only give birth to girls, and on the rare occasion that they do give birth to a boy, it's always a boy of their husband's race. The curse also gives them their snake-like bodies and makes their bodily fluids poisonous, and as you would expect, finding a partner is pretty difficult when there's a good chance they die from touching you. Because of that, she needs to make sure her husband has a body that's strong enough to resist poison, but there aren't many people like that out there. Selena's mother got lucky and managed to meet the perfect human while on a journey, and both of Selena's parents got along great. All Dolan says to this is that he's glad Selena is happy, but that makes her think he's treating her like a child. However, Dolan tells her that he just thinks she's cute when she talks, which gets her all flustered. He pours her a bowl of his soup, and while it may not be as good as the way his mom makes it, he is still pretty confident that Selena will like it. She takes a sip and she absolutely loves the soup's flavor, so much so that she starts rambling about how great it is. But once she realizes what she's doing, she stops herself and apologizes for getting so excited. Dolan says he's glad she likes it and recalls how he and his family would often sit around a fire like this on cold winter nights and enjoy this soup. Selena can tell that Dolan genuinely loves his family more than anything, and Dolan can hardly believe he once spent an eternity as a dragon all alone in a cave instead. The next morning, the two's time together has come to an end, so Dolan bids Selena farewell and wishes her luck in finding a good husband, but before he leaves, he wants to give her a present, and he recalls hearing that Lamia is like life energy, so he pours some of his life energy into Selena, but it makes her faint almost instantly. Dolan apologizes for doing that all of a sudden as he now realizes that his dragon life force must be a little too strong for Selena to handle. Once she has recovered, Dolan says he's going to start heading back to his village, and he invites Selena to come visit him sometime before beginning his journey home. This was the end of episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next part.